Come to beastsofwar.com and comment every day for your chance to win 2-player mega bundles.
Hi everybody, I'm back with James for another tactical chat about the campaign that's running this weekend for the Flames of War Bootcamp. So, this time James, you are taking us through military maps and icons, so unit sizes, echelons, things like that, yeah?
Yep. So welcome to part 2 of military, how to read a military map and how do I make sense of all this nonsense that scribbled all over the map.
Yeah.
So in the previous part of the video, we talked about what all the different unit types were and what types of units that we're showing here on the map and where they are and how they're moving around. So we're going to talk about now is the size, because one thing that gets lost in a lot of tabletop miniature board games is the scale.
Well, here's the thing. In war, size matters.
Oh, size matters. Numbers count. Just ask the Russians. They'll tell you all about it. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about here are sometimes the most important part of the unit marker or the unit icon that we see on the map, and that's this little part that goes on the top. Okay, this denotes the unit's what we call echelon. Or like level of an organization, or if you just want to be simple about it, the size of the unit. Yeah,
so XXX, 2X, 1X, triple I.
Right. So when people say like, okay, what's a squad versus a platoon? I mean, Warren wanted me to go through this and just make sure that everyone had like a good baseline about what these units actually are, because not everyone reads the stuff all the time, and they want to play the game, but they don't want to get lost in all the gibberish and all the technical information. So when you're playing a typical, like say, Flames of War game, you can have a couple of platoons of tanks, maybe a platoon of infantry. Okay, you put 2 or 3 platoons together, you've got a grand total of maybe 100 men on the field, including tank crews. That is a company. There are no companies on this map. It's way too small. Yeah. Companies would be like dots.
Okay.
So a Flames of War table on this map, you almost couldn't see. It would be literally a couple of pixels on a map of this scale. And the units would be like dots as well.
So everything, let's say we took everybody's army from the boot camp this weekend. What would that equate to on this map?
That's a good question. Let's work our way up to it. So if one person's starter kit is roughly a company, maybe a reinforced company, you put 2 or 3 companies together, you get a battalion. 3 or 4 companies, I should say, you get a battalion. That is these guys with the 2 straight up eyes coming off the top of the icon.
Yeah.
There aren't very many. I didn't really make a whole lot of battalion icons for this map, simply because, again, they're super small.
Yeah.
However, they are very elite units that I did decide to make. That's the German recon battalions that I wanted to put in the map just for flavor, really. They're on this map with these units flying around. They're going to be a little more than speed bumps. They're really fast. They're really light. They're there to pretty much look for the enemy, find them, tell the big guys where they are.
Yeah.
So that's like 3 or 4 players. You get everybody that's playing, say, the Germans, and you pile that together. Now you've got 6 or 7 companies or whatever. You're coming close to a regiment. 2 or 3 3 or 4 battalions put together makes a regiment, and that's where we get these guys with the 3 arrows pointing up. Regiment would be, like I said, about everybody who's playing a certain side, for the boot camp. So say 10 players put all their stuff together. You've got almost 60, 70 tanks, and probably a couple thousand men. Now we're up at regiment, commanded by a colonel, a full bird colonel. You put 2 or 3 of those together, you're going to come up with a brigade. Brigade is the single X, commanded by, surprisingly, a brigadier general. That would be like putting everybody in the boot camp together into one massive force. So if you put it, to answer your earlier question, if you put the entire boot camp together, the British and Germans are suddenly friends, and we're going to attack the Russians or something, you now have roughly a brigade's worth of stuff.
Cool.
Couple of brigades get put together. This is kind of a weird spot. Some armies put 4 or 5 regiments together to make a division. Some armies put like 2 or 3 brigades together and make a division. Either way, you come up with sooner or later a division. These are the main units in almost any army, certainly in World War II, even nowadays. The division concept was originally kind of invented by Napoleon, and Western armies have never really gone away from it.
I'm happy we're not fighting on the Eastern Front, because the Russians just had tank armies.
Yeah, well, we're not even near armies yet. So that's a division. A division is at full strength, which is, at least for the Germans, almost never the case. between 200 and 400 tanks, 200 and 400 pieces of artillery, and including all support personnel, we're up to 15 to 20,000 men. To put a division on the table, you would need flames of war board the size of a parking lot. And that's these large double X units. Put 2 to 4 divisions together. By the way, that's commanded by a major general. 2 or 4 divisions together, you get a corps. And that's the big DAK, Deutsches Afrika Corps here.
Yeah, the triple X.
So before right, triple X. Before we get too much further, I want to just make one quick point because this is something that sometimes gets confusing on military maps. Here we have Deutsches Afrika Corps, and I just explained that's like 2 to 4 divisions put together. So I don't want people to think that there's a Deutsches Afrika Corps with 3 and 4 divisions, plus 90th Light, plus 21st Panzer, plus 15th Panzer. Just to kind of explain these levels and how they go together. 8th Panzer Regiment is actually part of 15th Panzer. 15th Panzer is actually part of DAK. So really it's DAK, isn't in addition to all these other units, it encompasses all these units.
So it's sort of the mother unit that they're all
totally.
coming from.
It's an umbrella headquarters, organization, and administrative logistics support.
Okay, well, I guess the Brits will be attacking, what is it? Al-Qasir?
In this quick example, yeah. So, and then of course we have the 3 Italian Corps. I didn't bother to put the Italian divisions on the map. I do have pieces for them when they catch up later on. They were much less mobile. You're going to see a lot more yellow on the map as well. So those are the 3 basic, those are the basic levels that we have on this map. You put all the orange together or all the Axis stuff together. Now you're at the armies. That's British 8th Army and Panzer Army Africa. You put a couple armies together, you get an army group. There weren't even any army groups in North Africa until 1943. It wasn't big enough. You put a couple army groups together, now you're in the millions of men. That's a front or a theater.
Yeah. See, this I actually quite like because it's one of those things I've always had trouble with, is actually figuring out the actual idea of such a scale of men on the move and on the march.
Yep.
You know, I mean, like, John was showing me a documentary about the Russians, funnily enough, whenever they were actually marching across stuff, and apparently the army would just keep going, keep marching, and the ground behind them was just laid waste because there was that much moving over it.
Yeah, and this doesn't really happen too much in modern war, but you go back into the 19th century, American Civil War, Napoleonics, armies would eat a path through the land because they didn't have a supply train in those days.
Army marches on its stomach.
They didn't have fleets of trucks behind them with all the food. So if an army didn't keep moving, it would starve itself to death as it just ate all the food in a certain area. It was a walking famine. So yeah, that definitely takes place there as well.
Yeah. Right, well, so we now know sort of what size the things are on the map. Anything else we want to cover in this one? Not
really. You see some of the original attack, or some of the initial attack arrows. Like we have some, this is just kind of a sample right now. We have some of the battle markers. We're going to go into that a little bit more in the next part of this series, where we just want to talk really quickly about how to set up a campaign game if you've never done one before, for your tactical games.
All right, well, guys, hopefully you're enjoying it. Get your comments in below. Don't forget, we do have some prizes up for grabs this weekend, so get your comments in and you could win some very cool stuff. Myself and James will move on here, and we will see you in part 3.